One of the best methods I've learned how to deal with emotions is to invite them in while they are still knocking on your door. And what I mean by that is that often when we feel something, it's telling us about some need not being met, or some need being met if it's positive emotion. But most of us don't have so much trouble letting in the positive emotions. There the challenge is more about how much we grasp onto those and how sad we feel when those fleeting emotions go away. But what we often resist is letting in those unpleasant emotions. I don't want to call them negative emotions because they are very important, but they feel unpleasant. They are not something we look forward to receiving and feeling in our body. But that is really, really important. And that is also the quickest way to get to some other emotion, to allow them come in, feel them fully in the body, like focus even on feeling them fully, like, okay, if it's coming, let's feel it all through the next minutes. And there have been some research pointing out that the typical emotion in the healthy system doesn't last that long. There have been 5, 7, 8 minutes, something like that, but I don't have the exact reference here, but the point is that is often less than you expect when you start to feel like, okay, something's coming up, I don't want to feel this. But if you just give it space, if you're in an opportunity to do so, it's like not in a work, driving a truck or something like that, but if you can just give space for that, when it's knocking behind the door, like, hey, here's something for you to feel, then you can probably deal with it easier than if you try to suppress it or keep the door shut and keep this visitor, unpleasant, unwanted visitor outside. Because they rarely do go away. There are various things they can do. They can keep their knocking, or as you imagine someone knocking on the door, and if there is no response, they start banging harder and they start yelling, and then at some point they come through the door if they're persistent. And quite many emotions are quite persistent. And so that's annoying. And even worse is that if we really feel that some emotion is not something we could handle, we might kind of package it and put it away, which is a survival strategy probably most of us have used at some points in our childhood. And then at some points those packages start to unwrap themselves when they feel that, ooh, now with this adult person we may have a chance to actually feel this emotion, which we didn't have as a child. And sometimes the adult person might be resisting. So that's another important point, that you don't have to check from the emotion, like, okay, where are you coming from? Do you have a good reason? Shall I open the door or not? Because sometimes the emotions come from the far past, even though the trigger is in the present moment. Like maybe something your partner says, or something your colleague does, or you miss the bus, or your planned schedule changes. It might trigger a lot of pain because of past trauma related to something similar. And you might be blaming yourself, like, oh, it's just a small hindrance, I shouldn't be feeling this bad. But if you can allow yourself to feel that and dive right in, then you'll be quicker through. The only way out is through. Like, let that emotion sink in. One tip for me that has worked very well is that I go laying down and I completely relax my body. Because when I'm standing or sitting, I'm still tensing something. I'm keeping my posture. I'm holding on, like. And that's kind of nice that the emotions are polite. They wait behind the door for a good moment, quite often, especially if you handle them quickly. So let them come in when you feel that something's coming up. It might not be that clear, but you learn your own cues, like how you want to avoid that. For me this morning, I suddenly started to feel like, oh, I must go eating. I'm super hungry, perhaps. And then I went to grab an apple, and that's a good thing. Typically, I look for cookies or something sweet, but apple was what I went for this morning. And then I realized halfway through the apple that, okay, there is some emotion that is trying to come up. I'm trying to suppress it by eating, which is one relatively common and effective way. And that's like a clue for me that, okay, what if I put down the apple for a moment and I go lying on the floor? And then it wasn't that fast in the beginning when I started doing this, but now it comes almost immediately, like some shaking in the body. This time there came some crying, and the emotions flew for like 3 minutes or something. I don't know. But It was rather quick. I felt much better after that than with the resistance and this uncomfortable avoidance and seeking for sweet food type of feeling. So by keeping the unwanted emotions away, we often hold ourselves in this discomfort of not letting something happen, this resistance. It's like that someone is behind your door and you hope they would go away, but they keep knocking and increasing the voice. So the longer you keep going on with that battle, the longer you feel this discomfort. So next time this happens, you start to feel like a little weird, or you start to notice some of your avoidance patterns, and try to take a moment. Maybe try this relaxing thing, or maybe try to ask yourself what is there. Do something that supports you feeling. It could be also that you go in a separate room in your own privacy so that you don't need to have the social pressure of behaving a certain way. But really try to find out how you can do that. Or maybe you go in the forest, or maybe you go into your favorite place, or maybe you go into your bed. But try it out. Really let the emotion come. Really express it. Shout, cry, laugh, shake, make noises, whatever comes. And yeah, let me know if that works for you. Put down in the comments what are for you the cues where you notice that some emotion is coming up. What helps you to let the emotion in? And if you have any other you want to share, or any questions about noticing these opportunities or how to handle them, I'm happy to answer. See you in the next video.